All right, good evening and welcome to the Neary Building Committee. It is Monday, October 7th, 2024, and it's 7:33 p.m. First order of business is approval of meeting minutes from September 13th and September 16th. Were there any comments on either one of these sets of minutes? Seeing none, I'll move that we approve both minutes as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, roll call vote. Denise?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
Roger?
Aye.
I, and Kathy did not come in while we were talking, right? Nope. Okay. So that is going to be a 5-0 vote. Next item is approval executive session meeting minutes from August 9th. Those do not look like they got uploaded, so I'm going to upload those while we keep going, and I'll come back to those at the end of the meeting. I promise it's about 3 sentences to read, but I don't want to rush the approval of those. So if we're not ready at the end, we can do that another time. Okay, item 4 is update on design review space with the educators. So Katie and Jim, let me give you co-host access for the evening, and just would ask that you provide a summary of any initial discussions you've had with Greg and his team, and also use this as an opportunity to provide an update of additional requests from the MSBA related to how the space is shown as well from a diagram perspective.
I'll go ahead and jump in with that. I think the straightforward one is the request from the MSBA. We had provided in our FAS submission a diagram of the building with the different spaces color coded the way that we do on our plans, and a legend of spaces. For example, number 1 saying entry sequence, and they requested that we label each space so that they could understand, what every small space was. We had them fully labeled on the special education, but they'd like to see a little more detail on some of the other spaces. So we have labeled those, and Jim, did
Yep.
you send to the?
Yeah, so then I went over to Christina Ford early last week, so that's under review with them.
And then secondly, we have begun our design review meetings with Greg and his group of educators. We had one meeting last week, really sort of functioning as a kickoff, talking about just the whole process, how we want to approach this. It's the first meeting of a few. I think we have 3 more scheduled on the calendar. Perhaps this was the third. But we want to see, we might schedule a follow-up. They're basically every second week. We talked in this first meeting largely about adjacencies, and some really sort of high-level information about things like special education and things of that nature. So we are going to make a few tweaks and come back and talk in 2 weeks. And Greg, do you want to add anything to sort of the nature of what we're discussing? Is that sufficient? Great.
And Jim, can you just get me the final version that went to the MSBA of the space diagram, just so I can make sure that the committee gets it? I know I might have been copied on a draft. I just want to make sure I have the final one.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. I can shoot that over.
Okay. Any questions from the committee? Denise?
Hey, Katie, could you give me a notice with those meetings? Because I didn't know that we had already started.
Absolutely. I will add you to that. I apologize. I
No
remember now
problem.
that you wanted to be, I can send you the notes from the first one. And then I'll add you to the invite for the meeting. It will be, let me check the date really quickly, but I will add you to the invite for sure.
Thanks.
So that'll be on the 15th.
Okay. Other questions on design review? Okay. Has anyone heard from Kathy? Wanted her to be here for the next item, but I'll take it if,
I can text her and see if she'll respond.
okay. Just see if she's gonna be able to join, but I'll start the discussion and Mark can certainly weigh in here too. So, next item is special town meeting logistics, including a date and location. So last week, as we had discussed at our last meeting, a group of us that included the moderator, town clerk, chair of the select board, Kathy, myself, and Mark, convene, Mark Purple, that is, to discuss initial steps to calendaring a special town meeting. Ultimately, the decision on a date resides fully with the select board. But obviously there's a lot of logistics that would go into this particular one. As you remember from our calendar last time, we could have a meeting no earlier than April 30th of 2025, because that is the tentative schedule of when we are on the MSBA meeting agenda, which was reaffirmed a couple weeks ago with them as well. And the annual town election is on Tuesday, May 13th. So if you go with the premise that you would hold a special town meeting first, followed by a ballot vote, that gives you less than 2 weeks to hold your town meeting.
Jason, Kathy said she's planning to join, so I think she's gonna try to get in soon.
Okay.
I'm here.
All right. Hi, Kathy. We're on the special town meeting topic. So I was just previewing the range of dates that we had to work with, but I haven't gotten into any substance yet. So that group discussed a range of options between May 1st and May 12th. And ultimately, I believe, pending the availability of Algonquin High School and the gymnasium, the select board will be discussing whether or not they're in agreement of scheduling that special town meeting for Saturday, May 10th at some time in the morning. And there's a lot of discussion about youth sports in particular, in terms of trying to allow for as many community members to attend, including both adults in the household, should they want to attend. So the goal was to anchor the meeting on one end of the day so that, those activities could proceed, maybe not as normally planned, but in an altered fashion, given that there would be a significant amount of notice to plan it. The rationale, at least currently, again, the select board holds all the cards in this decision, is against the first weekend of the month. That's the first weekend coming out of the school vacation week, which is when a lot of the youth sports kick off, including special events. It would just be create a lot of conflicts within the community that seemed that could be overcome with an additional weekend of notice. And then there was also discussion about weeknight as well. But it was fully acknowledged just watching the special town meeting of was that last? Yeah, it was a week ago today. And the participation that existed there based on the zoning discussion, that the later it gets, the higher likelihood chance you have of losing participation. And obviously this is not going to be a short discussion, given that there will, ultimately be pros and cons. So, Greg or Keith, do we have any confirmations yet on the availability of Algonquin before I give it to Kathy to see if there's anything else that she would weigh in on in terms of how the select board may or may not approach this tomorrow?
It does appear that Algonquin is available for both for that day. May 10th, was it, Jason?
Yeah, Saturday, May 10th in the morning.
Yep, we're all clear.
Okay. And just for everyone's benefit, the auditorium holds just north of, I believe, 900 participants, and the gymnasium can hold an additional 2,000 participants. So in terms of space, that would allow you up about just under 50% of your registered voters in Southborough. So Kathy, anything else you'd add?
Well, I've got a question. Greg is here, right? And Keith is
Yes.
here. Okay,
Cool,
and
yeah.
neither were with us on Friday, so I was asked to ask the following question. Greg and Keith, would you ever think there is any wisdom or prudence to actually holding school on that Saturday? Actually having it be a school day?
No, we'd have to give it some more thought, Kathy. Off the top of my head, my first response is no. I don't think it would be feasible. Are you thinking because then students would be in session and parents then would be freed up to be able to attend?
That's the theory. It wasn't my idea, and I'm kind of with you. I think that teachers would balk. And then, of course, the parents that weren't going to come to the meeting would balk that their kids are in school on Saturday. So I was skeptical, but I promised I would throw it out there just in case you thought differently.
Then my initial thought is no. For the reasons you just stated, Kathy.
Well, I don't want to talk. I mean, don't listen to me. You know.
No, I mean, I think it's the student calendar is set. We have to work with our educators, the collective bargaining agreements. It would, again, I don't think my initial reaction is no. And again, I think it'd be just too challenging to do. And
Greg, what about firing up SEDP?
yeah, I think those are the things we should look at, Andrew. SEDP, recreation departments, to be able to support, childcare. I think that would be really important and something we could do.
Okay, 1-day town meeting camp.
That's also under the select board's purview. So I'm going to bring that up tomorrow night. As far as actually offering childcare. Unlike what we did Monday night, which is does give people with children a place to go with their children and be able to come with their children. So this is different, actually offering a place to have their children dropped off so we can get as many parents there as we possibly can. So there's that. And then Jason said, what we talked about on Friday, we thought that maybe 9 o'clock would be the best start time because it would give the afternoon sports a chance to actually happen if we had for example, 4-hour meeting. So that's what's going to be the discussion tomorrow night, as far as logistics go. But I do expect to leave there tomorrow night with all this decided and the annual town meeting date set also, which of course needs to kind of piggyback this so we don't make people come back, 2 times right in a row.
I'll throw 2 items out in response to that, Kathy. One is, as you discuss the childcare situation, I think the select board should also see if you can partner with the schools. I know there's a significant number of students looking for volunteer hours, and I don't remember which grades are, you have certain requirements. So I think that would be another option beyond the groups you've already mentioned. The second part of this is the ballot vote. Just more for our advisor team here. The town clerk would need that language, let's just say by April 1st of 2025 to put it on the town ballot. So obviously the ballots will be printed before we know the outcome of town meeting. So just to make sure everyone's on the same page there in terms of any language that MSBA would require. Obviously, if MSBA pulls their vote or something like that, we can cross that bridge when it comes. But I think we should have discussions with the MSBA about what our logistics are, just to make sure they agree once all this gets set in stone by the select board.
Yeah, and we can facilitate that conversation. And there is specific language that they require with the vote, so we can get to that pretty soon.
Okay.
And I
He's probably need the amount.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
Kathy, sorry.
Jason, can we clarify something that we said in a prior meeting, just to make sure that this is what we have to do? We have to, at the town meeting, in the article, Regards the fact that at that point, MSBA has already voted, they have voted on what our grant is. We know what it is. We still have to have the full gross projected cost approved, correct?
Correct.
Which I think is too bad because, we'll explain, it's not what you're really gonna bond, but I hate to have, okay, so we gotta do the whole thing regardless, okay. And
Your
then on
question?
the ballot, what do? We've got to put the full thing there too?
Yes, yep. The full amount has to be appropriated by the district.
Do we have to do them in that order? Or this might be a question for Brian. Can we do a debt exclusion pending approval of funds?
My understanding is, and someone else can weigh in here if this is incorrect. The town meeting's gonna be scheduled before the vote right now, right? Assuming the select board continues with this plan. If it fails at the first town meeting, so on May 10th, it fails to get the 2/3 majority, the ballot vote can continue that following Tuesday. Let's just say that passes. You can then come back to town meeting and all you have to do is get the 2/3 then. And you have to do all this within 120 days as well. So that's just the other consideration we have as part of this. So can someone correct me if that statement is incorrect?
It's not incorrect, it's correct, but I think what Andrew's asking is, could you, if you wanted to, if there was a reason to, could you do the ballot first and then do the town meeting vote? I'm not sure why you would do that, Andrew.
I was thinking if we could put it on the November ballot.
You only have 120 days.
Yeah, we missed it, but that would have been a good. I'm just wondering if we're going to get more turnout.
You're talking this November?
Yeah, we missed that one.
We'd have a lot of education, and I think a failed ballot vote is a lot harder to overcome than a town meeting vote.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
Not saying I recommend it. I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, no,
If we miss I just feel like the state one, usually there's more early voting and, it just seems like it gets more people out.
Well, it's a presidential too.
Yeah.
Denise? You're on mute, Denise.
Sorry. I also think that it's better for the town meeting to be first because there'll be a lot of education that night and explaining versus not explaining, going to the ballot box. So I think we really need to do the town meeting first so that we can explain what they're voting on and when they get to the ballot box. Just my humble opinion.
All right. Is there any other feedback for Kathy before she embarks on her quest with the select board tomorrow night? Mark?
I'm gonna get into the weeds just a little bit. I am not a fan of some of the moderators' rules, and I'm glad we're in a special town meeting. We can't present this in 10 minutes. We have to have a lot longer time to make a proper presentation. So I think some discussions need to be had to set up the rules properly, so that we're not rushed. And just secondly, however we get the presentation set up, let's avoid at all costs putting up a slide that just shows printed matter, typed. I can never read those things at town meeting. I can't read them on the TV. I can't read them in the hall. And this has been going on for 10 years at town meeting. No matter what pair of glasses I have, I can't read that printed word. So if there's any slides that have printed material, we've got to set it up differently in some sort of PowerPoint presentation, because you're going to lose a lot of the seniors. Poor Bonnie Faniff was standing there and she looked at me, "Can you read that?" I said, "Hell no." So we just have to be very careful with the presentation so that we know everyone in the audience can read the darn thing. But as far as the moderator rules, I think we need to set some things up so that we have the time to make a proper presentation.
So,
Understood. I think there will be further discussion about that.
Yep.
As we go. And I would tell you that I think it's incumbent upon this committee, regardless of what the moderator decides to do or not do with the rules of the hall, we certainly control how long and how much education we provide to the community well in advance of that presentation. So if there is a time limit that we are being kept to, that we work to that, but control the narrative outside of the hall in terms of what we want the community to be aware of. And point well taken on the slides, and we can do some test runs ahead of time.
I'm surprised that those who were at the special town meeting, the long 2-night special town meeting, aren't saying to me, would you please make sure the select board doesn't put anything else on this warrant? Which is what I'm going to request. We can't stop citizens petitions, but we will just have the annual town meeting, and hopefully any citizen petitions will go on that. So we will try to discourage citizens petitions, and the select board can certainly keep anything else off there. So I think it should be one warrant agenda, so that we spend time talking about this and not get bogged down in things that have nothing to do with the new school.
And the precedent was set with that with Algonquin years ago. It was a single
Yeah.
agenda item.
Lessons learned.
Okay. So Kathy, assuming the select board takes a vote on this tomorrow night, we'll get some communication out, not only to this committee, but to the community. And then obviously have Jim liaise with the MSBA just to let them know our intent as well, to show kind of the direction we're headed as a community. Okay. Next is update from communication subcommittee on the next steps in educating the community. So we did have a subcommittee meeting last week. We realized now that special town meeting has passed on other items, we're now in prime time. We know that there's a ton of design work that needs to be done that will inform a updated cost at some point here, over the winter months. But I think we know a lot at this point, and we need to make sure we start educating the community in a variety of ways. So what we agreed to, at least preliminarily, and welcome thoughts from the broader committee, is we will be starting office hours both at the senior center, but also at a variety of times in other locations within town. So we'll be looking for help from other committee members, because we as the communication subcommittee can't do them together. But we're envisioning a situation where potentially a communication subcommittee member plus one other member of the committee can be both voting or ex officio, are at various spots in town to canvass and start kind of one-on-one type discussions, and allow people a format to liaise with the committee, learn about the project, and maybe not as part of a setting as a open public meeting, to ask really those tough questions that they have and provide us feedback as well. We are also planning something very similar through Greg and his leadership team with the educators, to make sure that even though not all of them are voters within the town, make sure we're bringing them along and that they have a voice at the table, and weaving some updates of those into upcoming principal coffee hours. And mainly those will be around the transition plan and starting to solicit feedback of that 2-year time period when students will be in a different school for certain grades than they are currently, and use those again to educate the community on what could happen if the project proceeds, and start to solicit feedback from there. We also had a pretty robust conversation about regular updates after each meeting. So after this meeting, we'll type a short paragraph and it'll sit on the website itself. So if someone comes to try to catch up to the project 3 months from now, they can kind of see what we did here on October 7th and not have to just rely on the meeting minutes. Of course, the meeting minutes will still be there and be the ultimate source of record, but really just a 1 paragraph summary to kind of see and articulate everything we've done. And then not lost on, I think, any of us here is that the website so far, I think, has fallen short of our expectations. So Greg and his team have been thinking about ways to enhance the experience and get the content out that we need to get out, including the why, and start to show kind of presentation of all the items we've discussed in public meetings, but put it in a flow that even the most impatient of all individuals could find what they're looking for. If they're, they have questions on the finances, they have questions on the why, what happens if they don't do it, questions about the site itself, questions about the grade configuration, questions about the enrollment. So that is certainly a priority in a work in process. The final item that has been agreed to with dates TBD is to conduct open houses of the school when the school is not in session, to allow those that have not had a chance to go through the school to go through it. And there is a line of thinking that we would likely open more than just Neary at some point in time too, for walking tours, just for community members that either haven't been in these buildings in a while, haven't had a reason to ever be in them. Either their kids have not gone to the schools yet, or they've aged out and haven't seen the newer infrastructure in certain areas. But really just to allow them to understand the holistic view of our elementary school building population. So those are the targeted actions that you're going to start to see a huge emphasis on between now and the December holidays, but obviously welcome thoughts from others of other areas that we should be focusing on or could be focusing on beyond that. Mark?
Did the transfer station ever come up as a location to have a regular attendance?
It didn't. I can't say it didn't cross my mind, given what we did on public safety. Those were probably some of the coldest days I've ever experienced outside. It's certainly one option that we can explore at any point in time. I know there are different reactions to being approached as well. So we're trying a soft reach out now, but if there are committee members that are think there is value to that, there's certainly precedent for it in something we can certainly help to facilitate. We just need to be careful to never have more than 4 members in the same spot for any sort of those discussions for obvious public meeting reasons.
Well, we have an esteemed selectman that has his spot taken, but clearly there's a little grove of trees across the street where you could have a set up a tent and a cup of coffee and just discuss it with people. Or you could set up at the swap shop in back where people tend to park a little bit longer and you see them gathering back there to talk. I just think a presence down there is going to hit all sorts of people. We may gather a lot of information far in advance to see what is lacking or isn't. And they can see updates as we have more information. Everyone, well, not everyone, quite a few people go there every Saturday. It's just a good spot to be.
I agree with Mark. I mean, this is Sam's spot, but I sit there with him, I don't know, every other Saturday for a while, and we get a lot of business. And it's very pleasant. People truly want to talk about things. The school comes up quite often. So I do think transfer station is a must at some point at some place there. So
sounds like you two just volunteered.
I'm glad to do that one.
So we'll set up a volunteer schedule, and obviously, if we want to add those on, I do agree with the Saturday sentiment, though, that that's obviously you're likely to get the most traffic there if you're looking to engage with a broad subsection of the community.
Jason, what's like kind of the communication window where we have enough information to present to people, talk about it? I mean, do we want to start now, or like I was thinking like Heritage Day almost? But or do we not have enough kind of data and it's not far enough along in schematic design to really have that conversation, and we should wait till more early spring?
So I don't think we can wait anymore. This is my own personal opinion. Others can weigh in and disagree if they don't agree with this, but I think we have certainly enough information to, I think the three questions I continue to get are, why do we have to do anything? What are like questions about the cost both ways, and questions about the site. Those are the three questions. I'm sure and not naive to know that there are more questions out there than I just encapsulated with those three bullet points. But we have what we're likely going to have around most of those. What our design team is going to be working through over the next couple of months, it is really probably more important to the educators, right? And I don't think someone is going, again, call me out if you disagree with this, but I don't think someone is going to vote the project up or down depending upon where the second grade, third grade, and music program are in the school. That's critically important that we say the educators are on board with the flow of the building. Well, we just need to let them do their work. We can certainly show diagrams of kind of how it's coming together. So that's my 2 cents. Is we can certainly start now, and then our slide deck can certainly evolve over time. But Andrew, I would even just kind of say, like, how up to speed is advisory?
Mhm.
And how up to speed is the select board, other than maybe the member that's on this committee and a member that usually comes to our meetings. So, I think that's the other thing we have to think about is public boards and bodies. Like, are they all up to speed enough to articulate the message and be able to weigh in when they need to take their official votes as well? Obviously, those are the only two that will take official votes, but when we did public safety, as an example, I think we had 12 boards or committees that weighed in with a level of support around it because of the wide-ranging effects of that project. I actually don't see that many in this project, but again, things happen and come up.
Do we want to try to do a table at Heritage Day like they did for Gronkplex?
I don't know when the registration deadline was.
I think it might have already passed, but I mean,
It has, but I'm sure.
Kathy could make a call. We could get a free table.
And I remember, I don't know, Andrew, what you remember, but I remember that they had some traffic at that table.
I remember it.
But Jason, I can't emphasize more than what you just said. And you can ask Sam. I mean, he sees a lot of people at transfer station on Saturdays. We're hearing about this project from a lot of people. We had the volunteer breakfast this morning, and 3 separate people said something to me about it, and it wasn't positive. So, and it's not necessarily just those who don't have kids in school anymore. So I just think we've really got our work cut out for us. The library is not going to hear about their project. It's delayed because of the MBTA stuff. So we're not going to hear from the library group until the first of the year. We thought we were going to hear from them this month. So that's still staying in the budget for now. So anyway, I just think we've really got to get going quickly and with a united front and hit every place we possibly can.
Denise?
I do think I agree with Andrew. It'd be great to do Heritage Day, but one of the things I think we can rely on is that great flyer that we used at the open house at the beginning of the year. That had quite a bit of information on it. And maybe we can use that to pass out. I don't know how many people saw that, but it was pretty detailed. about the project.
And it's on the website as well.
Mhm. But I think handing something to somebody, if they have questions, that might be a talking point until we actually, because it's pretty close to Heritage Day. If we actually, aren't putting anything else together, I think maybe we might be able to rely on that, at least as a talking point.
All right, so if anyone wants to take the lead on Heritage Day, and coordinate something, I think you already have materials ready based on the flyer Denise is referencing. But if not, I think we have plenty of opportunities coming up in October, November, December to start to have those discussions with the community and hear the feedback that Kathy's hearing and others, and react accordingly to it, depending on what we believe the right path forward is based on that feedback. All right. I'm going to combine items 7 and 8 together because I think it's in the same slide deck that Jim and Katie have. But so this update on project budget, and by budget, I mean the feasibility budget, just where we're at on the 975. And then a far more robust discussion around design bid build versus construction manager at risk presentation. And I will preface this with I think the team here is expecting a vote tonight if we get our questions answered on which path we'd like to go down, but obviously they have some education to do for all of you. So with that, Jim, Katie, and anyone else, floor is yours.
All right. Okay, so first, the project budget. So we are currently 47% build to date in going into schematic design. So we're right where we should be as far as cash flow. Overall committed, we're at 947,683, which leaves about a little over $2,300 uncommitted. We have 5 payment requests into the MSBA, reimbursement requests. We've been reimbursed on 4 of those. We have a large one in right now. So the total reimbursed from the MSBA is 106,307. So outside of that, there's no other updates on budget, unless there's any questions.
Jason, why do you keep saying 975?
Sorry, 950.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, you didn't say Jimmy, it was Jason.
Yeah, no,
Oh.
I don't know why I did. So it's 950.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, okay. All right. There's no other questions. I can jump into design bid build CMA risk. Okay. All right. So as Jason prefaced, we're going to have a discussion on the project delivery method. So there's 2 distinct paths in the state of Massachusetts, design, bid, build. So just very simply, design, bid, build is we bring the design documents all the way up to 100%, send them out to bid. We get we get bids back for both a general contractor and subcontractors. And then whatever cost that is what we move forward with. The other path is a construction management at risk, or CMR. So this, you are bringing them on at the start of detailed design. So that's after the town vote. We go right into detailed design. So that firm, if we were to go to the CM at risk path, that firm we'd bring on, pretty quickly right after the town vote if it were successful. The question may be asked, why are we doing this in November? And the reason for that is that we do need to submit this to the state's IG office for approval. And that approval period is 60 days. So we obviously, that has slipped past 60 days. So we want to do it as early as possible so that, we're not up against the vote. So just if folks are wondering why we're doing it so early in the process.
Jim, I thought you only submitted to the IG, if you were doing the CMR.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Yes. So if we go with CM at risk, we would have to submit to the IG's office. If it's design bid build, we do not. Thank you, Kathy. Okay. So ultimately what these two project paths are is methods of risk management, and basically all the risks are listed here for any project, regardless of which delivery method it is. Obviously, unforeseen conditions, cost escalation, subcontractor performance, site logistics. So everything listed here. So the delivery methods are ways to mitigate that. And when we jump into the follow-on slides, you'll see the differences between the two. So first, the contract type. So design bid build is a lump sum contract. So that means that it's based off the cost of the work, general conditions, and the profit of the general contractor. So this is a fixed price. Anything outside of that that's not clearly shown on the drawings and specifications is considered a change order. And another important piece of this is any savings under that lump sum are retained by the general contractor in the design bid build method. For a CMR, the contract type is a guaranteed maximum price. So this is bids of work, work packages, general conditions, and a set fee by the CM. So it is a cost plus contract where the final price is based off the actual bids received and the amount of contingency and agreed upon general condition and fee. So one of the big differences is that the savings, if there are any savings within that GMP, they come back to the district at the end of the project. So that's the major difference between the two contracts. We do in the GMP, that is a negotiated contract. So we work through that with the CM. And this is also important that it includes allowances. So if there's known scope that can't necessarily be quantified prior to the start of construction, the CM will build in allowances, and that's in concert with the project team as well, to make sure that that financial risk is covered within that GMP. In the lump sum method, we don't have that opportunity because we are just getting bids in based on the drawings and specs.
So Jim, I get design bid build, CMR. So what do you base your selection on? What are you asking the applicants to tell you so that you've got a pool of candidates to base on? What are they supposed to do? Give you what they think the GMP should be and what their fees should be, and that's what you pick it based on?
So it's a qualifications based, and at the end of the last slide here, I do have the process that we go through. It's a qualifications based process. At that time, they give you their general conditions and their fee, which is set, and then their pre-construction services. So that's their work prior to the bid. And those three numbers are what you have and what is selected. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so the GMP doesn't come into play yet.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So do you have to pick the construction manager that is offering the lowest fee?
No, it's a qualifications based. And then once you select it based off interviews, you negotiate the general conditions. They have their set fee. And then it's similar to the OPM selection process where you are reviewed and then you enter into a negotiation for the general conditions and fee, and then you proceed with the contract. Now, yeah, the GMP cost comes in at the end. So that's not set at the time of selection. Okay. All right. So quality control, that's for basically the drawings themselves. As I said, with design bid build, GC bids are strictly based on plans and specs. If it's not shown on the drawings, it's not owned by the contractor. It's very, very straightforward. And they don't have any opportunity to review those drawings prior to it going out to bid. For the CMR, however, again, as we just touched on, it's a qualifications, experience, proposed team. And then the CM has early involvement throughout the design. I think this is probably the most important piece of this, is that during design, the CM will do numerous constructability reviews, logistics reviews of the drawings and specifications, so that they can highlight, flag particular risk points, be it cost, be it schedule, and those can be flagged prior to the bid. And so that it can be incorporated, any of those comments can be incorporated into the drawings and specs. And it really does set up a positive collaborative experience, so that by the time you get to construction, the CM has reviewed the drawings, understands the design, and has worked with the project team for that period of time, be it 12 months plus. So subcontractors, in the design bid build method, filed subbidders do not know the GC. So when and there's, in the state of Massachusetts, for those that aren't familiar, filed subs, they're particular trades that are required to be submitted directly to the district. And those are those are open bids at town hall. So but the GC does not, just basically gets that set of subcontractors and then goes forward and works with them. So in the CMR model, the CM leads that method. They still have those set of filed sub bidders. However, outside of that, any non-filed sub trades, they are doing that procurement process themselves. So most of these firms have pre-vetted all of those subcontractors. And again, the early involvement, knowledge of the project helps CM mitigate gaps in the purchase scope. So when they're buying scope from these subcontractors, they've reviewed the drawings and understand where some of the pitfalls may be, and they're able to fill in those gaps. So cost implications, this is a big consideration. Just to go back to the PSR estimates, if you remember, the cost that we carried there is the CM at risk. Our estimator added 5.6% for CM at risk. So those are the numbers that we have. And as we explained during that process, that was so that we didn't have to go in the direction of increasing the numbers after that point, after it's been voted on. So in the design bid build method, it's a highly competitive market. So it will likely yield a lower upfront cost. That likely will happen. And it's hard priced. So again, it's drawings and specs. And it is not open book accounting. So with CM at risk, we have line of sight to all of their budget lines. In the design bid build, we don't have that line of sight. And again, simple accounting, any savings on the project stay with the GC. For CMR, the project team works together to, as we said on the other slide, establish the GMP. Direct subs are selected by bid. Profit and general conditions are fixed So that's important, that at the beginning of the project, and somewhat to Kathy's point, their fee is set. And no matter what what the project budget does, if it goes up or down, that is set. So there is no incentive to inflate costs, because their fee is their fee. So also, it's continuous budget feedback throughout the process. So we will know exactly where we stand as they go through the buyout process. And the GMP includes contingency within the GMP itself. So we have our construction contingency that's controlled by us. There's a GMP contingency within that cost, and that's really to cover any unknown costs. And that percentage can be anywhere from 2.5% to 3.5%. And it's all a judgment call as you're leading up to the GMP. And we have line of sight to that contingency. So the CM risk versus design bid build, I think this is an important graphic. So the CM will work with us throughout the design. And on other projects, this is another important piece, is that they can understand the fast tracking pre-purchase of equipment. If they see a piece of equipment that has a long lead time, that early bid package can be released prior to the full project, so that we can mitigate any schedule risks of material not being available, lead times going out. So that's a very important piece. And ultimately, the input that we receive from the CM is cost, but also the schedule risks. They can understand if something, how it's being drawn or designed or phased. They can understand that and inform us that there's a better way to do it. There's a faster, more efficient way to do it, and that gets built into the project documents. And this graphic here, this is the development of the design over time. The orange is the ability to influence design, cost to make changes. So obviously during design development, if the construction manager smokes out an issue, raises it, it's a lot easier to put it simply, change it on paper than change it in the field. And at that stage, you don't have markup on change orders, potential schedule impacts. So with the influence on the design being earlier in the process, even though you're paying, potentially more upfront costs, in the long run, it can provide more, basically, it can provide risk management again of the cost. So you're managing that risk through the design, so that when you get to construction, you have less surprises. So next, this is the CM procurement process. We will, and I apologize, I know in the other meeting I said no more subcommittees, but this would be just for this process. You would set up a pre-qualification subcommittee that will include the OPM and designer, and then 2 public representatives. You'll advertise, evaluate responses, and pre-qualify at least 3 firms. Then you'll establish a selection committee. That can also be the same committee as the pre-qualification subcommittee. Issue the RFP, receive and evaluate rank proposals, and then, as I said previously, negotiate the non-fee terms with selected proposer and award the contract. So again, I know a lot of information, and it's definitely an important decision. However, I think there's benefits on both sides, and us as a project team, both Skanska and Arrow Street, have managed projects with both delivery methods. So open it up to questions.
Jim, do you see with the CM at risk more interest from contractors with more horsepower and just a little bit more, I don't know, just better quality subcontractors and contractors looking to bid those?
Yeah, so it's definitely a different pool of firms for the CM at risk. So yes, there's definitely some of your larger companies in the state. The ones that you see signs of in Boston are more apt to go the CM at risk route. We are somewhat bound by the filed sub bid subcontractors. However, overall, a lot of those filed subs do work closely with some of the CM at risk firms.
Kathy, then Mark.
Will you let Mark go first? Because he knows it so much better than I do. He may get my questions answered.
Well, I was just going to ask, in the last, the construction environment's a little bit different today than it was even 2 years ago. In the last year, what's the percentage of school projects approximately that went with one versus the other?
So
Do
I
you-
couldn't give you, I couldn't give you a percentage. However, for the size of projects that have been coming out over the last year, be it elementary schools, high schools, there definitely districts are leaning towards CM at risk. I think that's more the majority. Then that's changed a lot in the last 10 years. Over the last year, I think it's stayed about the same as it has over the last 2 to 3 years. It's definitely, and that's a big reason why the MSBA used to give a additional reimbursement point if you went CM at risk, but it's become so common that they pulled that back because pretty much every district was getting that additional incentive point. So it's definitely, I think I would say the majority of projects are going this route.
And on the negative side, which is projects that end up in an acrimonious position with change orders and others. How does one versus the other fare with that process?
So in the design bid build world, any change is going to be an owner's change order that gets issued to them. So just that process you're more apt to have schedule impacts along with your change orders because it has to be a formal change order. In the CM at risk method, a lot of this is built in. So if it's a scope gap that can be funded by GMP contingency, that doesn't have to be a formal change order, then yes, it's less schedule impact. It's already been assumed. It's already part of the GMP. So I would definitely say that the change management, change order process is much easier and predictable with the CM at risk model.
Okay. That's it for now.
Kathy, you want to go now?
I'm still, again, I'm repeating myself. I get the design, bid, build, fine. I'm still having trouble truly trying to compare these two in my head cost wise. Are we voting tonight, Jason?
If we can, if not, Jim, you have to give us a deadline of when we need to vote if there's questions that the committee has that need to be resolved.
Yeah. But like I said, we have 60 days to submit to the IG's office. So we have a little bit of buffer there. Obviously, it's nice to have this behind us submitted. But yeah, if there's lingering questions, not a consensus, we can definitely, I would say I wouldn't want to go past the November meeting. I definitely would want to finalize it then. But you know, if there isn't a consensus or there's some questions that we need to circle back to, I think I'd be okay with that.
Well, I'd like the finance subcommittee to have a shot at really picking this apart with Mark's help. So I'd rather not vote if we can wait to November so we really can truly hopefully understand the pros and cons and how they really apply to us. Because I don't get it yet. I don't get I just don't get the CMR quite yet. There's still, I got too many questions in my head that I don't think I can even ask them right now. I need to really think about them.
And Jim, one of the things, I don't know if it's, I'm trying to remember back to, I think I've seen this in other non-school related ones. But you get, in design build, you usually get the GC in earlier and kind of, you can kind of get them in the design process a little bit earlier than design build than you can on the CM. Because you got to go through the construction manager first. So the process is a little bit longer in terms of time, right?
You have
So
it
the
reversed.
yeah. So the the CM at risk comes on early. The in the design bid build, the GC, they don't come on until it's out for bid.
But that's assuming you don't use the same GC for design bid and design and build.
You only use
So-
one, only use one, and you have complete construction documents, and then you put them out to bid. So the GC comes on much later with design bid build than it does with CMR.
The CMR is not the GC either.
Yeah, they are.
So yeah, they're effectively, they hold the subcontracts, including the filed subs. So that they are, it's just the terminology, a general contractor versus a construction manager, for the two delivery methods. But they are doing the procurement, and again, they hold all the subcontracts, the CM that is.
Do the architects have a preference?
Tell you, I have worked more recently with CM projects. Larry, let's see. Larry, do you have any input you want to say before I launch in?
Thanks, Kathy. Or Katie. Sorry, and I'm starting to walk for the train because I got hung up at the office. The processes of actually getting the building built are quite similar in both cases. It's the pre-construction effort for the CM at risk that you're going a slightly different route. So essentially, we do a set of drawings with a CM at risk, and at the end of that, we're putting it out to bid in many ways the same way that we would with a GC. I think the thing we usually tell our clients is if you have a complicated project, a CM at risk is the way to go. If you have a simple project, a GC can save you money, but it certainly is oftentimes at a very difficult construction process. So I think Neary is somewhere in between. The soils that we have there are probably
Lost Larry.
We lost him.
Yeah, he may be. I bet he's in our elevator because there's not very good cell service there.
You get to finish his thought, Katie.
Okay. Yes.
where we have very difficult enabling work, where we have
Larry, we lost you, Larry, for quite a bit of
I'm
that.
sorry.
Right.
You're in the elevator, aren't you? Yes. So what he was saying about the soils, that and ground improvement of any sort is always a little bit difficult and could be unforeseen anything. We do our best. All the investigation we've done so far to try and understand what we're up against, but you know, you can it's difficult to see underground. So that's one aspect. The fact that we're demolishing the building all in one go and we don't have any complicated phasing makes it slightly less complicated. One thing that the CMR will hold a schedule. They're sort of on the line for something like an opening date for school. That's an important factor that they can be held to a little bit more carefully than a GC project can. And then the early work with them for me personally, and a lot of the more in-depth technical aspects of the building, sometimes they can ferret out something that we may not have considered with our specific design and improve upon that to make it better or more efficient, more cost efficient, those sort of things. And then I think the last thought Jim had kind of touched on early procurement with the buying the way that the field is these days with, post-COVID, with possible strikes with dock workers, with procurement of electrical devices and things like that are ever evolving. A CM at risk can buy those things early. Another project, the very first thing they did was look at the switch gear. There was a 2-year lead time, and they ordered that first thing, where you don't necessarily have that foresight or that ability in a GC project. So a few things to consider.
So Kathy, your proposal was that you wanted the finance committee to discuss this further?
Yeah, and I'd always meant to do that as part of this to really try to understand money-wise what this meant, each of them.
So I guess what would the timing be of that? When's your next meeting?
We haven't said it, this is what, so, we usually get the invoices in the next few days, so we'd do it by the end of October.
Jim, do you have any concerns with that timing?
Nope, that's fine.
Okay. I'm just gonna potentially rephrase something that's already been said, but I honestly don't know where I would go tonight if, had a vote, but is it fair to say that the lives of our school administrators is easier under the CM at risk in terms of like relationships, dealing with change orders, dealing with changes in project scope? And is it a meaningful difference? Because they're going to be the ones on the ground day to day. I realize you can't put a financial value on that, but I do want to be able to quantify time, if at all possible.
Yeah, so yes. Oh, go ahead.
I feel like you had described it at one point about managing risk, and I think that is really what the CMR is buying you, is some assurances, whether it's on the schedule, the subcontractors that they use, buying things in the right order. Our phasing is not very complicated, but that is often something that's considered. So it's a management of risk.
And also for the logistics, even though we're not going to have students on site, for managing traffic plans, pick up, drop off, we'll have all those pre-meetings with the CM at risk with the school administration to understand, when their construction deliveries are, all that coordinated. So I would lean towards yes, that I do think from a school administration standpoint, there will be more contact early on in the process so that they'll understand those concerns, so that when you get to construction, there is no learning curve for understanding the school because they've been working through the process from the start.
Okay. So I'm not sure you take that into account financially, Kathy, but just when I think back to the amount of time that the chiefs spent on the public safety building on various spaces, and then we look at some of the outcomes, right? I think we all know the HVAC there was less than perfect, right? Like, I think if we're going to spend money on this, I want to make sure we obviously do it right and have a building that functions. I read way too many articles still about schools that are not functioning the right way in neighboring communities, and that is not where any of us want to be at project closeout, regardless of how much this ends up costing. So again, if the team can help the finance subcommittee as they just think about the numbers, I think that's also an important factor of is kind of the follow-ups that come after the project. Denise, then Kathy, then Greg.
Two quick things. One, we have to remember as well, maybe Neary's not there and in session because we're taking the building down, but we have to think about the kids at Trotter because there's one way into that complex for the most part and one way out. And secondly, I'm concerned on a daily basis in my mind, there's so much talk about additional tariffs after this election. So I think if we can have someone managing the inventory and, having an idea or a handle around what we need to procure fast before tariffs hit will save us money. And I'm really concerned about that, what it's going to cost. That's it.
Okay, Kathy.
So Jim, the 18 required standalone bidders are the same under each version, correct?
Correct.
Process is no different between the two.
Correct. Yes, the filed sub trades.
Okay, file subtrades. Then the other bidders that, in the case of the general contractor or the construction manager has some flexibility as far as who he selects or he knows who he likes. He can basically pick the ones he thinks would be good for the project, where I don't see why the general contractor couldn't do the same thing.
So they pick all their trades, the general contractor. However, the district does not have line of sight to it or input on it. For the CM at risk, they would basically any award would come to the project team. They would recommend a subcontractor that could be vetted. And a lot of these firms have pretty extensive pre-qualifications within their own companies. I know Skanska does, that pre-qualifies subcontractors to work with, some of the larger firms in town.
Okay, I actually get that. That makes sense. Now, last question for me is, I thought the MSBA really encouraged schools to go the CMR route these days.
I don't think there's anything in writing. I think that has been the trend. Ultimately, the MSBA wants a successful project. And whichever delivery method that we proceed with, they just want a successful project. I don't think there's anything formal from the MSBA encouraging districts to go a particular delivery method.
And we get to pick the CMR without their influence or their vote?
Correct.
You good, Kathy? Right.
Can you provide us with two districts that have used the different methods and recently used those methods that we could contact and discuss?
Yep. Yeah, definitely. I can provide. I know Acton Boxborough was CM at risk. That would probably be the best one to discuss. I know they were very happy with that process. And then, but yeah, we can definitely get that out to the group.
Jim, is there any worry that we wouldn't have by special town meeting good numbers for either of these?
For the estimates themselves, for the schematic
Yeah.
design estimates? No. So we have to submit to the MSBA at the end of February for the April board. So we will have the schematic design estimates by the end of February.
So we will know the project cost by the end of February.
We will know the estimates and the total project cost. The grant won't be finalized until that April 30th board meeting.
Yeah.
However, we should have, like you've seen in the 3011, an idea of where that grant's trending towards.
Okay.
Kathy, your hand's not up again, right?
No,
It is? Okay.
promise I wasn't gonna do it, but this is important. Okay, so this shows that I'm not getting this, because I still can't explain then why was the CMR price that the estimator came up with 5.6% more than the GM price automatically? So, I mean, it implies that it's gonna be more costly, so I don't understand where that 5.6% came from.
So that's from the estimator, and that's likely based on historical cost. So with the design bid build, you're not filling in gaps in scope, you're not carrying allowances. The GCs, the general conditions just for the staff, is typically higher for a CM at risk. A GC will run a lot leaner with their staffing because it is a lump sum bid. So there's multiple things that are included in that. We would have to, ask the estimator everything that is assumed, but just speaking for him, it's likely based on historical cost. So in the GCs, in the design bid build, your cost will start at a certain point. And again, it's not factoring in I won't throw out a percentage tonight, but your change order percentage is going to be much higher on a design bid build because they're strictly bidding on plans and specifications. There are no assumptions, there are no allowances, they're not carrying cost for items within the drawings that they see as potential exposure. However, those get changed those are ultimately change orders. So it increases that cost. So the start cost is lower. However, for all those reasons, it will increase through change orders.
So I actually get that part too. That's one thing. But I still don't understand then why didn't the estimator say, okay, since he knows that's going to happen, why wouldn't he have built in the cost of those change orders, assumed change orders, to his estimated cost? So it sounds like he's left that out completely.
We did. That's what the contingencies are there for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So you'll have change orders, but you have a contingency for the change order.
Okay, with
Yeah.
What Jim is saying is the starting price before the change orders, but the price we're looking at for the project cost still has the change orders factored in. Or contingencies factored in.
Well, the contingency that's built into our estimate right now is a design contingency, correct, Jim? At least the big one is, right?
That's separate. So right now we have a soft cost owner's contingency, it's called, that is outside of the construction budget, that's below the line. We have a construction contingency that's outside the construction budget below the line. And then within the estimate is that that design and pricing contingency that you're referencing. So that's within that estimate number.
Okay, so he took that whole number and added 5.6% to it to get to the CMR version of the estimate?
Correct.
So enough of that for me tonight. I don't get it. So I'll get it before we meet next.
Yep, that's right.
Okay, Greg?
In the design bid build, the cost is fixed if it does not go over the savings do not come back to the district or the town.
Correct. Yep.
CMR at risk
Yeah.
If it's under budget, it would go back to the town.
Yeah, if we carried an allowance for winter conditions, say, of 200,000, they spend 100,000 of it at the end of the project, that 100,000 comes back to the district. Whereas in the GC, if they're within their bid price carrying 200,000, they keep that $100,000.
Yeah, my question was similar to Greg's, but in the design bid build, we can have bid savings, right? At, versus what we've estimated, which is what we got in public safety. If I'm correct, Jason, right? The
That,
bid was
that was the majority of
right?
the savings was the bid savings.
Yeah, so bid savings, whereas in GMP, there is no bid savings, but we might have, we in CM&R, we don't have bid savings, but we might have GMP savings because they're not spending all the stuff that they thought they would. But do we have a decision? Do we have any influence to help them not spend that money? Like if there's a $200,000 allowance for this, why is it in their best interest and their sub's best interest not to spend all that money?
Because it's
So,
his price. He's not going to get any more money whether you spend more or not. So he has no incentive whatsoever to do that. And his risk is if he goes over GMP, he's got to suck it up.
But why would he short his subs or not find more work? It's just like in my head, I'm trying to think of the incentive
so
not
see,
go
yes.
to the max GMP for him. If he goes over, he's on them. But if he's under and we get the savings, what benefit is it for him for there to be savings for us?
So what I can say for that is going back to that, we have line of sight of all the contingencies, all the holds. Those typically come to us for review and approval. So we have to be okay with the cost and understand the cost. Why are you spending the money?
Okay.
So it's definitely not a blank check. It has to be documented why they're using the funds, because ultimately it's all the district's funds. No matter what it is in the GMP.
And Jim, it's full transparency with the subs, right? Outside of their fixed price, all change orders are backed up with slips, certified payroll, et cetera. When you
Correct.
do, full GMP billing.
Yep, exactly.
So you can get back into all the extras.
So Chris, take what you just said. So if the electrical sub bid, right? One of the 18 comes in at $1 million, making up a number.
Yep.
And he's going to get $1 million if their plans are all correct and nothing needs to be changed, right? He's going to get his $1 million, even if he's able to save money within his own company by doing it less expensively than he thought he was going to do. He still gets his $1 million, right?
Well, this question would be for Jim. The way we do GMP projects, and either if we're the prime or a sub, we pick a certain spot where we flip to lump sum. So we work through buyout, through the design sets, through the design development, et cetera, to 100% CDs. We flip to a lump sum proposal, and we show all the savings through buyout, sub buyout, and equipment. And then we flip to a lump sum contract, and any change orders or extra after that point is presented to the design team and the general, or let's call him construction manager, for approval. Anything that's outside that scope, we agree to, we're at a point in design where we feel safe enough with our estimate and our budget that we can flip to a lump sum amount and pass on through any savings. Which will allow the contractors, like say if an electrician sees that there's some switch gear that's scheduled out and has a 72-week lead time, but he knows he can get another product that meets the specs, that meet the schedule, he can get it cheaper, he can offer those savings up to the CM and the district.
But these 18 bids that have to come in separately, and then in the case of the general contractor, he has to pick the lowest bid, right? That's what he does to build his bid. In the case of the CMR, don't those 18 bids come in as fixed lump sum bids?
Yeah, well, they submit, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, you submit a GMP proposal, And again, like we said before, we're not selecting the contractor off the bid amount. We're selecting him off of his fee and his percentages early on because they're not. The CM will be selected off of his pre-con, his overhead and profit, and his general conditions, and whatever they run at their contingency percentage.
Correct. Yep.
But like Jim was saying, where people get trapped, the documents come out, plans and specs. Those contractors will own just what's on the drawings. They're not thinking about temp utilities, temporary heating, and that's when the change orders start to add up. A lot of the contractors that price the lump sum bid jobs will add up the change orders before they price the job. They say, this job has potential. They forgot drawing all this piping in the wing. They forgot this, they forgot that. We're gonna submit our load number, and then as soon as they get the job, the change orders start coming in. They fly in, they have them all teed up, ready to go. That the world that those contractors live in, they just chase that 149A work. And they know how to make money on it because of that reason. So from a core team and quality contractors, you're definitely better doing CM, construction manager at risk, in my opinion. And that's what I see every day now, outside of public work.
So Chris, you are supporting the CMR.
Yeah, 100%. Yep. Yep, like I won't even bid a 149A bid project. Just because of the contract, I don't know who the contract I'm gonna end up working for is. And that, if I did, our number would be 2 times, because that drives the job. If the job's not progressing, schedule's not progressing, we can't make money on it. And there's a lot of risk. I won't even look at one of those projects, but if one of the GCs we're friendly with calls us up and says, hey, I got a job that's in your wheelhouse, are you interested in working on it and looking at it? And they know we're familiar with the GMP process, that's when we say, yeah, absolutely. If it's a good team, definitely. You're gonna get a different level of staff, in my opinion, in quality. And the full transparency through the process.
All right. Other questions for this evening on this? All right, so Kathy, make sure Jim is at your finance subcommittee meeting. We'll bring this one to the next full committee meeting and obviously allow finance subcommittee to provide a report. If anyone outside the finance subcommittee has questions that they need answered in the meantime, certainly don't hesitate to let anyone know, because I don't think we'll be able to push beyond the next meeting with a vote, it sounds like.
So, one quick question. So the CM gets involved in the design process so
Yes.
when is that the deadline that you're talking about, Jim? Is you want to make sure they're on board for when we start the design? Or aren't they
Yes.
starting the design now?
No, they're not for schematic construction documents.
Yeah. So it would be, we would have the RFQ, everything teed up leading up to the town vote, so that the day after we're advertising, we're, getting that ball rolling so that they can jump in to the process as early as possible.
Okay.
All right. Good for tonight on this? Good discussion.
But I am
Uh,
adding Chris to our finance subcommittee, so you'll probably have to post a whole NBC meeting too, Jason, because I think he could be really helpful in making sure we get it.
I mean, I don't know why we wouldn't just do it as a full committee at our next meeting, unless there's something financially that you guys are gonna dial back down into.
Hard to tell. So we can talk.
Okay. All right, public comment. Seeing none. Meeting schedule, we're probably gonna have to, let's see when the finance subcommittee meeting's gonna hit, and then I'll be in touch about a potential meeting date.
And Jason, Katie and I talked just earlier this afternoon. We're going to take a look at that November meeting to see if we pull it up or push it out by a couple of days. But
Yeah, I think, yeah, you had 2 in November. If we can collapse it to 1, great. If not, then let's pull 1 up into October and then 1, keep the other one. So give us some
Yep.
dates and we'll pull the committee to make sure everyone's on board.
Sounds good.
Any other business for this evening? Okay. Did anyone have a chance to look at those executive session minutes, or do you want me to put that in the next one?
I took a quick look, but didn't see anything earth-shattering.
I
Yeah,
didn't.
I'm ready. I'm
I
fine.
didn't look at them.
All right. We'll hold them to the next meeting. So I'll make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second,
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Kathy,
I,
Andrew,
aye.
Denise,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Roger,
Aye.
and I am I as well. Have a good evening.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.